Мы готовы, как президент Путин неоднократно говорил, мы всегда готовы к переговорам, но не видим готовности на той стороне и, самое главное, не видим договороспособных партнеров. Но то, что украинцы, вот режим, который пришел к власти после государственного переворота в феврале 2014 года, абсолютно не недоговороспособен, это, по-моему, уже никому даже доказывать нельзя. И даже те, кто его покрывает, финансирует, вооружает, они прекрасно знают цену этому режиму. И вот с таким...
We are ready, as President Putin has repeatedly said. We are always ready to talk, but we do not see willingness on the other side, and most importantly, we do not see negotiable partners. But the fact that the Ukrainians, the regime that came to power after the coup in February 2014, is absolutely non-negotiable, I think, does not even need to be proven to anyone, and those who support it, finance, supply arms, they know the essence of this regime perfectly well. And with such, I would say, fierce force, Europeans defend Zelensky exclusively because he is fighting against the Russian Federation for Europeans, in general for Western interests, for the West's idea to suppress Russia as a competitor. At the same time, I don't want to quote, but she still is the head of the EU's foreign policy structure, Kaja Kallas, when she declares, "We demand that Russia sit at the negotiating table, but first let it reduce its army, and reduce its weapons, set some kind of limits." And then she openly declares, as many other European representatives have said, that Europe will not be a mediator at the negotiating table. So what will Europe be then? Someone dictating conditions, accepting an act of Russia's capitulation. Europe has deceived both Russia and the rest of the world repeatedly. The West is non-negotiable, acting on the principle of, I promise here, then I drag out time, then either the donkey dies, or as is in our Arabic proverb. This line is quite, I would say, dishonest, aimed at unilateral benefits, to receive, accumulate, demand concessions, and so on. This line, unfortunately, now dominates. Europe, for me in its current state under the leadership of these elites, is a cut-off slice for world diplomacy. There are voices saying, we will need to talk someday. This is all unserious. They had a huge number of chances, and they failed all of them. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte went to Kyiv, where he directly said that Ukraine would be in NATO. He didn't care that the United States, represented by President Trump, considers this unacceptable. And Rutte simply stated, hugging Zelensky, that Ukraine would be in NATO. Regarding the recognition of the territories, the situation that has developed as a result of the struggle against the Kyiv regime by the population of southeastern Ukraine, it was publicly stated by Zelensky, and Europe supports him, that there will be no recognition. We will stop the war, accumulate forces, and then we will reclaim these lands further, so that the Nazi regime remains on these lands. Or rather, the Nazi regime is restored. The fact that Europe, besides dragging Ukraine into NATO, finds it easier to accept it into NATO than to take the fatal step and include Ukraine in the European Union. It would then collapse. They understand this perfectly. It was very strange when, after we agreed to the US proposal in Anchorage, they began to change its position, and instead of promoting these same proposals in relations with the Ukrainians, they are now pretending that the parties involved should sort it out themselves. This is not very logical. So, speaking in Congress, besides the fact that Russia is especially not ready for concessions, Marco Rubio stated that the United States is not a mediator, because they consistently support Ukraine, continuing to supply weapons and military equipment in the same volumes that were required. Not only the dialogue itself is important, although it is, but it is also important to implement what was agreed upon. I want to reiterate, we reached a very clear understanding in Alaska based on a specific proposal from the US, and if the United States had truly promoted its initiative, I think we would have been at the negotiating table long ago, and military actions would have been stopped.
Украину, продолжая в тех же объемах, которые и требовались, поставлять оружие и военную технику. Но важен не только сам по себе диалог, хотя это так, он важен, но важно и реализовывать то, о чем договорились. Я еще раз хочу сказать, на Аляске было достигнуто понимание очень четкое на основе конкретного предложения Соединенных Штатов. И если бы Соединенные Штаты свою инициативу продвигали по-настоящему, я думаю, что мы уже давно бы были за столом переговоров, и военные действия были бы прекращены.
Then like, share and subscribe to Mirror Now.